Hi, Dr. Webb. I hope you enjoyed your time in Ohio. This chapter is by Woomert, and it's based on using rehearsal time efficiently and effectively. And I really liked reading this chapter. So they explain, James Woomert explains how a good rehearsal is, to have a good rehearsal, there should be a cycle established. And I like how it said that you can the way to properly form a cycle is by using pre-established musical intentions and kind of building off on what you taught prior, like the rehearsal prior. And Mert explains how when you're when you approach each rehearsal, you have to kind of have a roadmap or an idea of what you want to work on and what concepts you want to teach. And if you narrow it down, it is so much easier to identify and diagnose what your students need to learn and what needs to be fixed. Because if you're too broad and just we're gonna fix everything, you'll have such a harder there will be a harder time figuring out what needs to be learned and what needs to be adjusted. In the second page, I really liked how he says that directors need to know what they want in music and they need to know how to communicate it. It sounds so easy to do, but when you really put into perspective, especially with such a little time, I wouldn't know how to really approach, or I think I would really need to work on that. And for ensemble setup, he explains how there should be room between each seat for appropriate setup and bowings, and how teaching or training, that's how he said it, training the students how to set up the room themselves is really helpful because it saves time for you as a teacher and it gives them responsibility, and it's just they understand the need, and giving them that responsibility is really helpful for their for their development. Having routines how fast and what to do, how fast do you want them to unpack their instruments in tune is really helpful because it kind of sets them up for an expectation. If you want them to do it really quickly, you kind of have to keep them at that and they'll understand, and it saves rehearsal time if you're strict on the quickness of their unpacking and setting up for rehearsal. With the routines, you can kind of manage the beginning of your rehearsals to where the students themselves can initiate tuning. So if you establish 8 a.m. immediately start the tuning, they'll put kind of do it amongst themselves and initiate it in however way. They also explain how when actually rehearsing, you can leave room for higher level discussion, and I didn't really understand that before reading it, what it was about. And it's kind of a higher level discussion is kind of concepts, leaving concepts that students can figure out, or it's student oriented. So bowings, let them figure out bowings, or some forms of expression and how to use them. Or fingerings and all of that. They also explain how creating a short and long-term plan is very helpful, and keeping track, just having those plans allows for a lot of organization, and you can see the progress of where they're going at, or where they're learning at. Rehearsal recordings. He explains how like recording the orchestra kind of, it's the most honest way of letting the players know where they're at, music wise, or like where the music is at. And it kind of goes along with like higher level discussion. They kind of figure out what parts they need to work on, or like what parts in the rehearsal you can work on if they don't understand. And the target spots are identified, which is the most important thing. He also mentions how you can also provide reference recordings that kind of are like, oh, this is what it sounds like, and having like a professional orchestra recording kind of motivates them to want to sound like that, even though like it would be hard to, but it's motivation. Also, with motivation, they explain how having playing exams can motivate. Like if you assign playing exams for the harder target spots in music, that's a motivation. And the last thing that is mentioned is student voice, and it's just kind of, it's so easy for directors to just like make it like director student based, like director, it explains and rehearses, but it's also beneficial to leave room for students to exercise their autonomy and figure out concepts on their own, and have rehearsals a little more student based. Honestly, I really should, when I think about how I would manage a classroom, I definitely would forget the value of letting rehearsals be more student oriented. So that's something that I know I would have to work on. And in my high school, it was very much teacher based only learning, or just on our own, we figured things out, not really in a grand like rehearsal classroom setting. All right, have a nice day, week.